What is up, people? Welcome back to Blue Chip Prospect for the final mock draft of the year. Now that we are about a week and a half away from the draft and that the combine is done, it is time to put everything that we know and everything that we've learned on paper and mock that thing up. So without further ado, let's get this thing started right away. We all know who's going number one, and that is Macklin Celebrini. That is no surprise to anyone, but it is well deserved after a crazy season in the NCAA where he got 64 points in 38 games, including 32 goals. He's third in points per game in the last 25 years after Fantilli and Jack Eichel, and he has a very complete game. To me, he's like a Nico Hischier on steroids. Very competitive, work his butt off on both sides of the ice, skates well, shoots well, very smart with and without the puck. Overall, a fantastic pick. And at number 2, I have Artem Levshunov, and I know that most Chicago fan wants to have a dynamic duo with Bedard and Demidov, but I honestly don't think it's going to happen. I think Levshunov is definitely the right pick here. Even a guy like Lindstrom makes a lot of sense, but because of the injury concern, Levshunov is the guy. A big and heavy and mobile right shot defenseman with elite offensive potential as well as high-end defensive potential is just too good to pass on. Even though Demidov's skills are incredible, there are still some question marks, and Levshunov plays the premium position. It helps that Chicago doesn't really have any high-end defensive prospect in the pipeline, and that they would get out of this draft with a player that has the potential to be a future star on their blue line. I think it's the perfect fit for them. And with the number 3 pick, Anaheim go with Ivan Demidov. There was a couple scenarios here that made sense, like Salayev to insulate that very aggressive and offensive defense, but while the archetype is exactly what they need, they would also need to move a D to the right side, which is much easier said than done. And since their right wing also needs a ton of love, Demidov is a perfect fit and complete that top 6 like a glove. With guys like Cutter Gauthier and McTavish and Carson, who are immovable objects with tons of skills, they add a winger on the smaller side, but that's just as much a play driver as those three and can feed pucks to his line mates as much as he can score. The skills and the brain on Demidov is as high as it gets in this draft, and what a dynamic, unstoppable top 6 that would be, and it gives them the option to move Zegras for a right shot D if that is what they really want to do. As a fan of a team who's been struggling to get good quality centers for so long, I feel Columbus is pain, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to fill that position and make sure to have a serious 1-2 punch at center with size, grit, speed, and tons of skills. So my pick for Columbus is Kane and Lindstrom, and it's a perfect fit in my opinion. Can you imagine in 5 years from now in the playoff series where you have to defend a line centered by Adam Fantilli, followed by another line centered by Kane and Lindstrom, and then another line centered by Cole Sillinger. Obviously, Sillinger isn't on the same combo as the other two. He doesn't have the foot speed to match them, but that is 3 skilled, big, heavy, and very competitive center that you can send back to back to back all game long. You move Johnson to the wing, and now you have him plus Gaudreau plus Marchenko and Chinnikov and probably Brindley at some point to play on the wing to be able to build a scary good top 6, even top 9 in a couple years from now, just by adding Lindstrom. The Montreal Canadiens find themselves in the worst case scenario here where their top 2 forwards are gone, the one that would fill the evident lack of skill in the top 6 and the one that was a big mobile and skilled center. At that point, if I'm making the pick, I'm debating between Zeev Buium and Catton, but those 2 players don't strike me as Habs type of pick. I'm ready to be surprised and I'd love to, but I think they go with a player like Seneca in this situation. It's a risky pick, but it's a pick that could pay off big time. Seneca was a player who was seen as a possible top prospect for the 2024 NHL Draft last season, but after a very mediocre start, fell off on the public boards. With his second half of the season and his playoff performance, I think he has proved over an adequate time simple size that he's for real. He's a big kid with tons of room to grow. Crazy hands, great feet, good shot, good vision, and a competitive edge. There's a lot to like, and he fits the team need with his skill level and his size. They said too many times that they'd rather go with a forward and that they feel like their left side is stacked enough for me to give them a player like Buium or even a player like Parekh. But they also dined with Yakimchuk and Dickinson, so who knows really. At this point, there's just way too much skill on defense to pass on them for a smallish player like Iginla or Katten when they just picked Logan Cooley 3rd overall 2 years ago. They could keep building through a big and solid defensive core, but I think the opportunity to add a puck mover of that quality to their blue line at 6 is just too good, so they go and pick my boy Zeev Buyum, just a dynamic offensive player who can manipulate the other team in the offensive zone like no other while also being very competitive defensively. I think Buyum has star written all over him, and he's been fantastic for years. It's not just a one-off, he was great in US and TDP, and he's even greater in the NCAA. He's electric, he's confident, he's busy defensively, and he creates a ridiculous amount of offense. So for me, that's a hell of a pick. And at number 7, Ottawa picked Zane Parekh, and honestly, I think the right play here is to pick a right D. Offensively, they already have guys like Gring and Pinto to fill their top 6 in the future or as soon as next season, and their left side of the defense is pretty stacked, so I was hesitating between Yakimchuk and Parekh, but I think that the 3 inches in height that Yakimchuk has over Parekh does not equal the difference in IQ and mobility between both. So I think Parekh is the right play here. Parekh is a very special kind of smart player on the ice with tons of skills and vision for days. Yakimchuk is a more impressive player. He hits harder, he's more engaged physically in the offensive zone, his hands are crazy, and he can just walk through everyone, but Parekh is just special. He's basically Carlson 2.0 coming in Ottawa. I'm pretty sure the fans would be cheering for that one, and if they're not, I will, and I don't even like them. And at number 8, Seattle goes with Anton Silayev, and after spending most of their draft capital, or at least their high picks, on forwards since their inception, this time they go D, and they go D big time and pick Anton Silayev. And honestly, I'm not sure how likely it is for a guy like Silayev to fall all the way to the 8th pick, but as of right now, when I look back, everything makes a lot of sense. Anton Silayev has the potential to be a true number 1 defenseman in the NHL. I don't think he's a star like some people were saying he could be the next Hedman, but first pair or number 1 D is definitely in the realm of possibilities for me. He's a defense first type of defenseman, even though he's breaking records in the KHL in terms of stats, but that doesn't mean he can't create offense or that he can't move the puck in transition. The stats slow down in the second half of the season, but let's not forget that he's playing in the KHL and that the handling skills and vision are there to create more. Some work is needed on the decision making part of things, but I'm not worried, and I think he'll be a monster in the league. Calgary goes with TJ Ginla at number 9, and I gotta say that I would not want to be the GM who passes on TJ Ginla if he was available at number 9. I feel like they need to build that defense, and with players like Dickinson and Carter Yakimchuk left on the board, I could see them go that route, but if Iginla is on the board at 9 on my mock, Iginla goes to Calgary, as simple as that, nothing to add here. And at number 10, New Jersey go with Sam Dickinson, and there was many options here. They could have gone with a big competitive with sandpaper type of guy with a heavy shot like Brandsack Nygaard, or a skilled all-around guy like Katten, or even a goal scorer like Yzerman, but I don't think they need another small guy with skills. I don't think they need a type of Yzerman type of guy either, and they can just let Holtz cook a little bit, and the difference between a player like Brandsack Nygaard and a player like Dickinson was just too big to put him there just because the style he plays is what they're looking for. So I went with Dickinson, who won't have to be the main driver of offense on the back end with players like Hamilton and Luke Hughes who can do that, but he could become one of if not their best two-way defensemen on the team who can defend at a very high level but also move the puck well without putting up star numbers and take power play time away from Luke Hughes and Hamilton. And with their 25th consecutive top 10 range pick, the Buffalo Sabres take another small offensive player. No, I'm just joking. This time they go with Carter Yakimchuk, and it's not a unanimous choice between my brain cells. I think they want someone who actually shoots right to play on the right side at some point, but I'm also not sure he's what they need in his current form. With some questionable defensive decisions and not so great retrievals and all-out offense style of play, they kind of already have Dallin and Byram to fill that role. But if you round out his game and his offense translate, Buffalo would have one of the best D-core in the league. So it's risky, but might as well do it with their prospect pool overflowing with players like Savoie and Benson and Kulich and Ostlund and Rosen. At some point you can have 12 smallish offensive player in your top 9, so taking a Katten or Yzerman here doesn't make too much sense in my opinion. And at this point, at number 12, the Flyers are being gifted players who I can't see falling much further. So the Flyers are going with a player like Berkeley Catton, and I know it's another smallish player who might end up on the wing, but this one is a complete player that just works non-stop with and without the puck, and he never ever cheats for his offense. There's also a chance that he sticks to center, so there's that, and that would be two great picks back-to-back with Mishkov falling to them last year and Catton this year. They could also go with a player like Yzerman, who's also a little bit bigger, but I prefer Catton significantly, so Catton it is. And at number 13, Minnesota goes with Konsta Elenius, and if I'm being honest, I have a hard time seeing a guy that had such a fantastic season in Liga against men, and that is such an intelligent playmaker drop this far, but the draft is deep, my guy. So Minnesota gets a little present and pick Konsta Elenius at 13. I also thought of a player like Yzerman here, but there's a certainty factor with Elenius that Yzerman can't provide because of his lack of progression over the season. But man, I'd be happy to get Elenius at 13. Elenius is a fantastic player that, for some reasons, has been tagged as a low ceiling and boring player over the season, but he's very creative player. He's one of the smartest player in the draft and a good skater that can really generate a ton of offense and proved it against pros all season. So not too bad if you ask me. And at number 14, the San Jose Shark, they take Stian Solberg. There is a couple different routes that the San Jose Shark could have went here. They could have picked Celebrini's good friend in Cole Yzerman and add a scoring element to their top 6, but I think that they need to start building that defense, and Stian Solberg is a perfect candidate for them to do so. He's a great skater with speed and agility. Probably the most physical and violent defenseman in the draft, solid defense and a touch of offense that's slowly starting to show. He's got a couple moves at the blue line to make players miss and open up lanes and outside shots. I'd be ecstatic to get out of the draft with Celebrini and Stian Solberg in the first round if I was a Sharks fan. And at number 15, Detroit take Cole Yzerman, and this one was written in the sky because Yzerman and Yzerman have the same name, just one doesn't really know how to write it. But joke aside, that would be a fantastic pick for Detroit. He absolutely doesn't fit the mentality whatsoever of hard-working, hard to play against, two-way detail type of player that they keep drafting high. But I think that two of them back-to-back is probably enough, right? You can slot a responsible Danielson or a Casper on any of your middle 6 line and let Yzerman do its thing. You need pure skills also at some point, and I think Stevie Y understand it, or he wouldn't have traded for and signed the little cat. So this have a chance to be a home run pick. I really like it. And at number 16, a little bit out of the left field, St. Louis goes with Yegor Surin, a big and heavy center who played in the MHL, got better and better as the season went on, and ended up the season with fantastic playoffs. Surin is a non-stop motor who plays a very heavy and physical game, but also has a ton of skill to make plays. He's an inside driver with a solid shot and solid vision and good hands. What he lacks in speed, he make up for it in competitiveness, and even defensively, he works super hard and he works super smart. Everything that he does is at 100% intensity, and he's everywhere on the ice all the time. I might like him more than most, and maybe St. Louis fan wouldn't be too happy with this pick, but with Borski last year and Surin this year, that center line is starting to look very good. And I mean, Vancouver picked Vasily Podkolzin at 10th overall, and he couldn't skate to save his life. Surin is a safer and a better pick than Podkolzin was, in my opinion. And at number 17, Washington picked Trevor Connolly, and Washington needs a little bit of everything, and probably especially at defense, but at this point they could go with a guy with like Jiricek, and even though I believe he's a good player and has top 4 potential, his season and injuries might be a little bit too much for Washington to pick him, and since they obviously don't care about what the fans and the public think, Trevor Connolly seems like the perfect fit. They get a player with top 5 skills but question marks in his game and in character who might hit and be the home run pick of the draft, and with Leonard last year and a supremely skilled player like Connolly this year, it could help them restart their franchise quicker than expected once the Great 8 is gone. And at number 18, Chicago go for Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard. I don't know who is that player that Chicago wanted to move up a little bit in the draft, or if they could just pair a second round pick to move up a little bit, but I feel like a player like Brandsegg-Nygaard would fit their top 6 or top 9, a big and heavy and physical player with a solid shot and probably one of the best two-way guy in the draft. That would give them two complementary options with solid shot, speed, and two-way game in Moore and Branson Nygaard, who could slot in pretty much anywhere in the middle six and play on the PK. I'm not sure Chicago fans like that pick, but I like that pick for them. In terms of team building, I think it's on point. And at number 19, Vegas go for Sacha Boisvert, and it's a bit hard to figure out where Vegas would go, but they traded their C prospect at the trade deadline, so since center and defenseman have the best value when trading, I can see them going for Sacha Boisvert, first because he's a center, second because he's right in there as one of the best player available, and third because he fits the profile of a big center who can play but also is competitive with an edge, can play physical, can play through contacts, can drive the middle, and have a lot of skills. So if they don't end up trading him, he still fits the team philosophy and style, and Boisvert can also fight. And at number 20, the Islanders go for Michael Hage, and the Islanders, a bit like Washington, is a bit of on the older side and kind of need a little bit of everything in their prospect pool, but adding a guy like Michael Hage at 20 is very, very good in my opinion. There's a chance he's gone once Chicago talk at 18, since they seem to be building their team through speed, but if he's not, he's a very good pick for the Islanders. Hage has some size, very good speed, great hands, solid shot, and also is a good passer. He might be a little bit too much of a one-on-one player right now, but I believe that can be corrected through development. I also thought of a guy like Greentree, but I'm not sure they need more big and slowish player on the team, so speed and skills at center it is with Michael Hage. And at 21, the LA Kings pick David Jiricek. There are different options here and some players with significant skills like Greentree and Chernyshov, but I think at 21 might be the right range for Jiricek considering the risk, but there's top 4 potential in him. Maybe LA would like to go with a less risky pick and take a guy like Baudouin for example, but I feel it's a little bit early. Jiricek isn't going to blow you away offensively, but he defends with intensity, he moves the puck from defense to offense quickly, and will jump in the offense when the opportunity presents itself. Overall, he's a great pick and he's a good player. And at number 22, Nashville go for Jet Luchenko, and at this point it doesn't make much sense to take a defenseman unless you really believe in Emery or Elick or Kleber, but 22 is a little high in my opinion. But after taking a big, very slow, all offense inconsistent player last year, they go with the polar opposite in Jet Luchenko, who is a smallish, non-stop motor, incredibly fast and smart and shifty two-way center. Wood definitely has the higher potential offensively with his shot and puck handling, but Jet Luchenko has the ability to impact the game even when he's not bringing offense. But I think he has the brain and the vision to create some offense, just not in a significant way, but a solid middle six center who certainly projects as a center in my opinion. And at number 23, Toronto go for E.G. Emery, and I know that I just said that it was probably a little bit early, but I think that Toronto needs to go D. I also think that most teams would prefer E.G. Emery over what is left. He's a top defender, he's a top athlete, he's 6'3" with tons of room to build on, he's very mobile, nothing gets past him against the rush, and while he might not be a top puck mover, he has a retrieval game and a solid first pass. The stats might be a little bit scary with 16 points in 61 games for the US NTDP, but nobody is drafting him for point production. Toronto needs defense in the pipeline, and Emery seems to be the perfect fit to get a future reliable defenseman with size and feet to play a modern shutdown game. And at 24, the Colorado Avalanche pick Igor Chernyshov, and to me, that's a bit low for Chernyshov. I probably expect him to be picked before that, but there's too many good players and there's not a pick I don't like when I look back. Chernyshov is a winger with speed, skill, and a developing power game. The fact that you can get a player with so many tools and with a mature enough game to play in the KHL for a long stretch at 24 speaks for the depth of this draft. I'd say that adding Richie and Gulyayev last year and adding Chernyshov this year while competing for a Stanley Cup is going to prove to be a pretty successful recipe to keep competing longer with a regular influx of talent into the lineup. Honestly, what a pick that would be. With a not so good U18 with diminishing ice time as the game started to count, Liam Greentree falls to Ottawa at number 25, and Greentree might lack in foot speed, but he makes up for it in skills and hockey sense. Greentree is a big and skilled winger with a heavy shot and good vision. He has very good hands and tight, and I love that he excels within his skill set. He knows that he won't beat anyone with his feet, so he lets the game come at him, and he's very patient with the puck. The fact that he got 90 points and 36 goals with Windsor is also pretty impressive. If Ottawa can get out of the first round with Perek and Greentree, I think they can say mission accomplished. That's a lot of skills added to the pipeline that has been suffering for a couple years. And at number 26, the Montreal Canadiens go with Teddy Stiga. So much has been said about the Habs wanting to add size to their formation, but at the same time, they pick Philip Michard in the first round a couple years ago, and they traded their first and second round pick for Newhook last year. So while I think size is an important part of the equation for them, I don't think they pass on better player just to get size. So Teddy Stiga to the Habs at 26 it is. Not only is he one of the best player available left on the board, he seems to be very underrated. He was also coached by Montreal's general manager Kent Hughes when he was at the Boston Junior Eagles. So there's familiarity and there's skills, there's character and two-way game, and there's bottomless motor and fantastic work ethic. So I think he has Habs pick written all over him if he's still there. And at number 27, the Carolina Hurricanes go with Ryder Ritchie, and Carolina always seems to go with pure talent and upside, and in this case, unless they go D with a guy like Cole Hudson or something, I think Ryder has what they're looking for. The production didn't show up this season, but the talent is obvious. He has a good shot and good hands, great vision, he's spectacular with the puck, he makes plays at full speed, he has a lot of different skills that we don't usually see at this stage of the draft, but because of the lack of production, it's very easy to see him fall a little bit, and Carolina seems to be the right spot for him. After taking Iginla with the 9th pick, Calgary goes on a search for a defenseman and pick Charlie Elick. What are the chances that a big 6'3", very mobile and physical right shot defenseman isn't taken in the first? Not that high in my opinion, and I think Elick and his style of play fits what team love to look for at the end of the first round and the beginning of the second round. They could go for a higher potential type of player, but Elick is basically sure to play in the NHL, and he isn't a profile that's easy to find. There's plenty of big defensemen in the NHL with an edge, but there's not many that can skate like he does. He's a modern day shutdown defenseman. He's not a sexy pick, but he's a good pick nonetheless. And at number 29, the Dallas Stars go for Cole Baudouin, and honestly, I'd be very surprised if Baudouin fell all the way to 29th, but if he does, I'm sure the Stars would be happy to add him to their prospect pool. He obviously doesn't project as a top 6 guy, but he could end up a top 3rd line center in the NHL, a physical beast with incredible competitiveness, a gamer also, a guy that elevates his game when it counts the most, and is just super disruptive and hard to play against. A hard matchup center who can also kill penalties. It's not sexy, but he's the type of guy that Tampa will give you 3 first and 12 second round pick for. He's the type of guy who can really help your team win, especially if you have to play him 7 games in a row. And at number 30, the New York Rangers go for Dean Letourneau. Rangers are in a great spot here. They seem to hit last draft with Perreault. They are loaded at the NHL level and a serious team with serious leadership. They can afford to take a swing for the fences here, and that is what they do with Dean Letourneau. Maybe in a couple years from now, they'll be able to ice 2 6'7", 6'8" player on the ice on the same roster. One with skills who can make plays and another one to smash people around. That would be interesting, but they are definitely not the same type of player. Letourneau, you can expect some kind of offensive output because he has hands, he's a good skater, and he has a good shot paired with his size. Not sure the same can be said for Rampe, but nonetheless, I'm sure the Rangers would be happy to have 2 giants on the team, one with skills and one to beat people up after being prepped by the captain with a couple accidental flying elbows to the face. And at number 31, the Anaheim Ducks go for Adam Kleber, and I'm not predicting anything here, I'm just going by standing, and at the time of recording this right now, it's 4-3 for the Oilers with the Panthers on a power play with 13 minutes to go in the third, so they might live to see another day. So at 31, I can see the Ducks swinging for Adam Kleber. They need help on that right side a little bit, and Kleber is also a different archetype of defenseman. He's 6'5", he skates really well, he has good defense and good details for a draft eligible guy, he has some puck puck-moving element to his game but is limited by his handling, which can be developed further, but still has a solid first pass and move well in the offensive zone. I think it's a good pick with a defenseman that has some potential but will always be a defense-first player with a physical element to his game. And with the last pick, at number 32, the Flyers take a bet on Emil Hemming. He seems to have the tools to almost be a sure-shot NHL player, but also have some tools that make you think he could be more than a bottom 6 player if all goes well. If he can bring his consistency to a couple level above what it is right now, he has the shot and positioning plus the stature, the hands, the skating to be a threat to score and play a little bit of a power game. Skilled player with size and a high-end shot at 32 seems to be the right play here. I like this pick as the last pick of the first round. So there you go. That was the last mock draft of the year. Well, at least in this language and this format. I will do another mock draft in French and as a podcast, so it's not technically the last one, but you get it, right? And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Peace.